Again, good afternoon, everybody. We are going to touch today a topic which is one of the biggest and most important ones that you will find when studying about the fourth way. That is a very direct application of the ideas that we have seen so far. This is called considering or consideration, and is normally subdivided into two ways we can live this condition. So internal consideration is a term that was created to describe the situation where we are identified with ourselves, so we are not present to ourselves when interacting with people, either physically or just mentally. What does it mean? Well, a quick example. Inner considering is the state in which we are when we are thinking about what the others will think about us. So we give, in that situation, a very big importance to what somebody might be thinking about me. And that creates a chain reaction of worries, of counter thinking, like feeling that this person is not giving me the importance that I believe I deserve, or this person has not been thankful enough for something I've done. So this is, of course, completely imaginary. Probably this person is not really even thinking about addressing some thoughts towards me. So it's something that is created internally by my never-ending train of mechanical thoughts. But although it has no reality, just like everything that is egoic, it has no reality, but it exercises, it has a lot of impact upon our psychology. What is the effect of constantly worrying about what people think about me? Well, of course, I will stay in a lower state of consciousness. I will not be able to be free of thinking about useful things. And I will start making accounts. In other words, creating internal accusations towards people for things that they may not have done, or for things that I imagine they are thinking, while probably they are not thinking about that at all. So we are describing a process that takes place inside of us, which is creating a lot of artificial importance around imaginary interactions. So one way of this process that we call internal consideration is, as we said, worrying about what people may think of us. Another way is the consequence of that, and as we said, is inner accounts against other people. What do we mean when we say making an inner account? Well, there are some examples in the text that you may have read that we've sent as an introduction. For example, we go to a party and somebody didn't even pay any attention to us. And being identified with ourselves, so in a lower state of consciousness, we take this as a serious offense. So how dare he ignore me when I consider myself so important? Another example could be the waiter didn't come when I call him. So as we consider we are so important, our call should be addressed immediately. Never mind that the waiter is busy doing a couple of other urgent things. We take this personally as if the other person has an intention to offend, to attack, while normally this person has no intention at all, is just absorbed by what she or he is doing. So it's a construction that happens inside our mind based on two facts. One is we are identified with ourselves, so we are not present to ourselves. In other words, we are subject to being drawn by any mechanical thought that arises in our minds. And second, we have a very high concept of ourselves. Basically, we have a perfect idea of ourselves as very important and free from defects. So we would deserve the highest consideration from others, the highest respect, the highest degree of attention, and so on and so forth. When we are internally considering, so in this state of identification and embittered relationship with the rest of the world, so to speak, everybody is to blame except ourselves. So we consider that the mistake or the lack of respect, etc., they're always on the side of the other. What is the opposite of this so-called inner considering? Of course, there is external considering. What do we mean by external considering? Well, let's go to the same examples and see them from another point of view. Say I am at a party and there's a person who is completely ignoring me. Well, I take into account that there is no obligation for anybody to notice me. I am just a normal person. This other guy or lady may have other things in her mind. So if I really want to have a chat, maybe I can go and greet. I don't consider myself worthy of such respect that everybody should come and pay homage to my illustrious person, right? Or I'm at a restaurant and the waiter doesn't hear me when I call. I have to call a second time. If I am externally considering, then I would just consider that, well, there's noise. He had other things in his mind, so I would just call again. Nothing serious has happened. Now, in order to exercise this apparently simple consideration, to take into account the needs and the condition of the others, we need to be in a higher state of consciousness. So, external considering is an art in itself and means put everybody at our same level, not consider ourselves superior. But in order to gather our force and attention and do this, we need to be present to ourselves. On the other hand, if we fall asleep, and you know what I mean, we're talking about the sleep of consciousness, then it's very easy to fall into inner considering. That is, I am the all-perfect person. Everybody needs to respect me, and every lack of respect will trigger some criticism, an accusation that I will silently cultivate inside my mind and write in a book of my accounts. So since we are normally in this latter lower state of consciousness, it is pretty common that we all have the book of accounts where we have noted all the lack of respect, all the lack of attention that have happened really or just in our imagination. And we keep going through our mind and thinking how I can make that person remember and notice that he was not enough respectful to me and blah, blah, blah. So the account book is a very heavy ballast. It's like a ball of iron that is shackled to our legs because it makes our life so much heavier. we cannot really be free to see the other if between me and the other there's always this big book of accounts and accusations that will filter everything that goes in between. I have tried to summarize this in a drawing. So let's see if I can show this to you. Okay. Just bear with me. I'm on it. Just need to find again how to share my screen, because I haven't done that for some time. So, okay, I think I found it. Good. So hopefully you can now see the drawing. I've divided that in two parts. So say our left-hand side, you see something called a higher state of consciousness, which corresponds to the ability to consider externally. And the other one, lower state of consciousness, that leads to internal considering. We can move from one to the other. When we have a moment of awakening, we will find ourselves able to see the other as the same as me, maybe even one with me. On the other hand, when we fall into a lower state of consciousness, we will go back to seeing myself versus the other in a sort of duality approach. So when I see the other as a problem to me, or somebody who I need to be afraid of, or I should be worried about what he thinks, I am in a duality type of mode. My approach will be that of internal considering. On the other hand, if something magic happens, say I wake up, I become present and I remember myself, I'm able to see the other as if it was a brother or maybe the same as myself. So all of a sudden, I see him or her as a human being who has difficulties, who has problems, who may forget about things. And in the moment I see the so-called defect of the other inside myself, let's say somebody has forgotten to call me, and instead of being offended and say, how could you forget to call me? Instead, I feel present and I realize that I forget to call people as well. The moment I see this, of course, the accident loses all of its importance, and I can stop seeing the duality and I can start seeing oneness. Sometimes a difficult interaction with a person will magically disappear if I can see the same defect or problem that this person seems to show as a mirror of something that I have inside. The moment I do that, the attitude of that person magically changes. How is that possible? Well, remember, this reality is a sort of a hologram according to some points of view, and everything reflects everything else. So the moment you feel stuck in a confrontation, maybe that's something that the cosmos is trying to teach you by showing you something that you are unable to see inside as an outer image. But when you realize that there is a mirroring going on, that this image is just myself seeing in the other, then there's no reason why the other should show me this lesson, because I've learned already. I've passed the exam. So all of a sudden, that drops, and there is no longer that attitude. So this is an interesting way to see that. And I invite you to try this with somebody who may be posing a challenge for you, say a difficult to handle colleague at work, or a difficult to handle relation, your partner, your son, your daughter. Well, we've already had some very nice stories here about how relationships can improve if only we look inside. And I invite you to try this over and over, because the more we show, say, the cosmos or the universe or God, that we have learned the lesson, that very moment, that lesson is no longer necessary. So the cosmos may stop presenting us with the same challenge over and over. I will send you that image on an email if you would like. I believe that there wasn't enough time for you to copy, even if you wanted. But the main concept here is one of the fundamental effects of presence is the ability to see ourselves in the other and the other in us, and ultimately to realize that we are a single being that has decided to look at each other from different points of view. So we are one of these points of view. We're not separate things. This is a concept you will find in Eastern philosophies as well. So it's not something we are announcing here anew. We are just trying to show how this concept can be put to the test, and how you can improve your life and your relationships all around by being present and looking inside, instead of looking outside with an attitude of accusation and making accounts, because that will just make your ballast heavier. It's no coincidence that one of the most important prayers we have suggests to forgive, and as we want to be forgiven, because that is a fundamental rule that holds in our cosmos. If we are light and we are, let's say, prone to forgiving because we understand what situation may have caused whatever action happened, and we found that difficult to digest, and maybe we were resentful. So if we are able to let go of that, and that will only happen if we are able to be present and look inside, then by the same token, we will be forgiven by others about other things that we may not even have noticed, or by the higher part, let's say, of ourselves, our divine being or God, or however you call it. You may discover that some part of your life that felt very heavy, very difficult, all of a sudden is lifted. Why? Because it was there to teach you something, and you just passed your exam. For all our friends that are not part of this meeting today and are seeing the recording, let me just remind you that you are free to contact us and join this meeting weekly. Just write to the address which is shown in our YouTube channel, or on our website, spaziosereno.com, which is also shown in the website. So then maybe next time, instead of seeing this recording, you may be part of this. So at this point, we will stop the recording and start the exchange part of our meeting.